This one is called Stalked. 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 Commandos engineer and single mother Sam is free for the rest of the weekend, and they decide to leave her 5-month-old daughter Amy in the care of Craig, an ex that they've had. That night, she plans on having a fun night out with her close friend, if you know what I mean, Berenice. But Berenice suddenly, she no longer wants to go, so they end up staying in while sharing a bottle of wine, so that's all. The next day, Sam is about to have her morning run, but Craig is like, you know what, I don't want to run anymore, and I don't want to take care of Amy, who happens to be crying due to a high fever. Although she's disappointed, Sam takes the baby from Craig, and then just a few moments later, she calls her mom to ask for advice on how to treat and reduce the baby's fever. The look of worriness, anguish, and distress is just painted all over Sam's face as the baby's crying and crying. Because Craig is an irresponsible father, she has to handle all this by herself. However, she needs to head out to buy some medicine, but she can't bring the baby with her as she's hysterically crying all the time. She puts him in a stroller and still crying. Although she's hesitant, Sam leaves the baby at home and promises to be back in a hot minute. Talk about a mother, huh? On her way to the pharmacy, Sam senses that something is odd and that something is following her. So here we go. And yes, an unknown person appears to be out of nowhere, covers her mouth, and knocks her unconscious. Later on, Sam wakes up alone in a secluded warehouse and immediately checks her phone, only to find, of course, there's no service. Welcome to Hollywood. Desperate and worried about her baby's condition, Sam quickly explores the place to find a way out and eventually discovers a door that leads to an abandoned military factory. Uh-oh, this one's different. Sam rushes to the factory exit and tries to open it, but it's securely locked. So suddenly, out of nowhere, Sam hears a subtle noise and feels the presence of someone observing her from afar. So she grabs a piece of metal for protection and tries to see who is in the factory with her. However, she soon realizes that she's alone. Sam then tries breaking the door lock, but this time she decides that it's hopeless and looks for another way out. With a piece of metal in one hand, she cautiously explores the factory to escape the place. After walking for some time, she finds a telephone and quickly raises it to her ear. She immediately drops it after she feels the threatening presence again. As Sam stays vigilant in the corner, she catches a glimpse of a woman. At first, the woman is scared of her, but soon introduces herself as Stacy, mentioning that she's also been abducted, along with another girl named Kelly. Sam explains that she needs to get home to her baby, and she needs Stacy's cooperation. Together, they try to break the door down with a trolley, but of course, they can't do nothing. Somehow, one of them gets injured. Stacy's quite exhausted, so Sam leaves her for a while to look for an alternative escape plan. Sam figures that a blowtorch can cut through the padlock, but they must first find where the gas canisters are stored. To get the job done faster, they decide to split up. Moments later, Sam finds a mysteriously placed torch on the floor. Although she's hesitant, she slowly crouches down to reach for it, but it horrifyingly just disappears out of nowhere. It falls on another corner. She desperately tries to take it, but an unknown force prevents her from doing so, and she ends up leaving after hearing Stacy scream. She then returns to her meeting spot with Stacy, only to find her chained by the wrist. Sam quickly frees her from the chains, but Stacy suddenly has blood coming down out of her mouth, and she's being mysteriously stabbed in the stomach by an invisible attacker. And now it's coming for Sam. So Sam runs for her life and bangs on a locked steel door, begging for someone to let her out. Unfortunately, the attacker eventually catches up to Sam and chokes her, intending to kill her, but soon decides to let her live. Sam falls to the floor and takes a moment to catch her breath, but then immediately gets up and makes a run for it. She locks herself in the warehouse to prevent the invisible attacker from following, but soon threatens to kill her baby if she doesn't step out now. Left with no choice, Sam steps out of the warehouse and gets greeted with a punch in the stomach. Being a military woman, she fights back and lands a few blows on her attacker, but eventually loses against her invisible enemy. Even after this traumatizing moment, Sam's spirit doesn't break and she continues to find a way out. By luck or by bless or by grace, she discovers the invisible attacker's office and a laptop with the factory security footage and some oddly titled videos. As she investigates, she finds one video with a woman getting killed, and Sam thinks that his previous victim of the invisible attacker was that one. Worried that she'll meet the same fate, Sam searches the attacker's death for anything that will help her escape. In her search for clues, she finds a paper titled Epsilon Military Solutions and discovers that the attacker is only visible to the naked eye, but not on camera. She becomes too engrossed in the discoveries that she almost doesn't realize that the attacker is about to enter the office. However, she manages to hide under the desk just in time. She doesn't get caught. Once the attacker leaves, Sam immediately gets out of her hiding spot and uses a laptop, not knowing that the attacker is observing her through the glass window. She quickly realizes her error and rushes to shut the door, but the attacker manages to barge in and forcefully slam it on a table. The attacker then cuts her arm with a sharp tool, causing it to bleed. Fear is apparent on Sam's face, but she bravely curses the attacker and says, "You know what, I'm not afraid of you." Trigger, the attacker punches Sam in the face. She spits on him to retaliate until the attacker finally decides to let her be. Just take the laptop before leaving. Once again, Sam looks for anything that can help her escape, and yes, she looks and looks, and then guess what? She finds a gallon of paraffin, some old clothes, cigarettes, some rubber bands, and a box of matches. She plans on creating an explosive that will act as a diversion where she goes back to retrieve the blowtorch that she failed to get earlier. Then Sam's makeshift explosive works and she executes the rest of the plan. To her relief, the padlock breaks and she opens the door with so much hope in her eyes. However, the attacker knocks her unconscious before she even takes a single step outside. Later on, Sam wakes up on the floor and finds that her arms and legs are tied, so she squirms and screams and frustration. She can't set herself free from the ropes. The invisible attacker suddenly speaks and says that if she tries to escape again, their baby will die and she needs to play my game. Sam hears the sound of a blowtorch. With it, the attacker purposely burns a small portion of her face, causing her to scream in pain. Despite being horrified with a bad burn, Sam tries her best to stay calm. The attacker leaves, and not long after, a young boy breaks into the factory through a ventilation shaft and immediately sees Sam lying on the floor. The boy then frees her, and Sam calmly explains the whole kidnapping situation. Seeing him as her only hope, she pleads with the boy to go and call back the police so rescuing can happen. Although hesitant, the boy complies and leaves the factory. While Sam waits for the police, she sneakily hides in a small office near the entrance and discovers that the attacker, whose stealth suit is turned off, has brought in an unconscious woman. Not long after, the attacker checks on where Sam was tied and finds out that she broke free. Also seeing that the ventilation shaft has been opened after a long search for Sam, the attacker gets up and leaves the factory. Thinking that she has successfully escaped, Tess, the attacker's newly abducted victim, is still sleeping on the floor, but immediately wakes up when Sam continually taps her face. Sam then explains her theory of how the attacker uses a military stealth suit that allows anyone to turn themselves invisible. After this, she convinces Tess to go to the ventilation shaft and scout the area for a potential escape route. As Tess looks around, she sees a canal and looks for a way to cross it, but to her surprise, she finds the lifeless body of a young boy who helped Sam earlier. He never made it to the police station. He was shot in the forehead. Already mortified with the sight of the dead body, Tess is even more shocked as a gun-toting drone appears out of nowhere to shoot and chase her. Sam can no longer hear Tess, so she takes matters into her own hands by going back to the office near the entrance, waiting for the attacker to enter the factory. Sam silently grabs her phone and observes the attacker's every move. They go around the factory with Sam trailing behind, just waiting when to charge, when to attack. Finally, they reach the entrance again, and now the attacker is standing cautiously with a sharp knife. With slow and short steps, Sam approaches and hits the attacker with a blunt object, causing the attacker to drop the knife. Sam then quickly grabs the knife and stabs the attacker in the stomach. The attacker lies down and becomes weak for a minute, but quickly regains energy to kick Sam away. They get into a long and intense fist fight, but as a military woman, Sam's skills prove to be useful and she finally stabs the attacker again. This time she goes for the kill. The attacker falls to the floor, so Sam grabs the keys and immediately runs out of the factory and gets into a van. However, the gun-toting drone again appears and is showering her with bullets, leaving her no choice but to quickly jump out of the vehicle before it explodes. The drone then chases her, but Sam manages to hide in a dark room. As she turns around, she is surprised to see that the attacker is standing in front of her. Puzzled with the lack of reaction from the attacker, she looks closer and finds out that it's just a stealth suit that turns invisible. She heads over to the computer and tries to access the internet, but as expected, she fails. And so she looks for other things that can help her. She then discovers a name tag that belongs to a janitor named Gavin Cutler, who works for the Epsilon Military Solutions. After this discovery, Sam dives deeper into the contents of the computer and finds videos from the military about a quantum stealth. Suddenly, Tess appears with an injured arm and explains that she escaped the drone by pretending to be dead. Sam then tells Tess that she killed the invisible attacker and that he's a janitor who stole advanced technology from the military. After this, Tess expresses that she would rather be in pain than go out there again, but with her baby alone and ill, Sam has no choice but to go out and use the stealth suit, which happens to be at 5%. As she opens the door, the drone floats vigilantly and she slowly walks away from it. However, the suit runs low at 1% and it eventually dies out, just when Sam reaches the perimeter fence. Unfortunately, the drone recognizes this and quickly flies over to shoot her. Sam jumps over the fence with the drone behind her, but she trips and falls. The drone now hovers above Sam and attempts to shoot it, but it runs out of bullets. Sam then throws a brick right at it and the drone crashes to the ground. Meanwhile, the attacker goes to the room where Tess is hiding and doesn't think twice about killing her. Trying hard to catch her breath, Sam takes the suit off and calls the police, telling them what happened. Sam can't wait for the police while Amy's home alone. And of course, she runs into a man with a car and asks him to take her to the military barracks where her baby is. They soon arrive there and Sam quickly barges into the house and cries while approaching the baby. Back in the car, the man is on the phone with his wife, who gets mad after he tells her that he just helped a kidnapped victim, thinking he's just making up a story. After his wife ends the call, he takes a moment to look at his bloody stomach and puts on the stealth suit in the back seat. It is then revealed that the man is the invisible attacker, Gavin Cutler. And once again, Sam and Amy are in the face of danger. Gavin then enters the house, but Sam hears the door, and so she takes a loaded gun and aims at an empty hallway. Before she pulls the trigger, she declares that she is not afraid. With 8 continuous gunshots to the chest. Plah, 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 plah. The attacker lies dead on the floor, while Sam walks closer to him to unleash a last shot right in his face. Chaka-pow! Thank you for watching. If you have received value in this video, I believe you know what to do. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, subscribing, doing all that good chit chat. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.